Abraham Lincoln once said, "I walk slowly, but I never walk backward." This couldn't have been more true when referring to his own life. Abraham Lincoln was born on February the 12th, 1809, in Hodgenville, Kentucky. From a very young age, he aspired to be a politician, as he knew that in order to create change, you had to be heard. As the 16th President of the United States, he was best known for his accomplishments during the Civil War, from NotableBiographies.com. Lincoln was not only a great president, but a great man. He was a freethinker, a visionary, a man with his eyes and mind wide open, who genuinely believed that in peace all things are possible. Not only did these qualities make him a true leader, but they made him memorable. And even though his life was cut short, his ideals are still prominent in the America we know today. As a man from humble beginnings, Lincoln didn't have much, but what he did have was a brain and lots of ideas. Before her death, when Lincoln was just a child, his mother, Nancy Hanks Lincoln, had encouraged him to read, even though she herself and her husband were both illiterate. There wasn't much for him to read except the Holy Bible and Aesop's Fables. Although his knowledge didn't grow tremendously, his abilities did. It didn't matter what he was reading, because now he could read, and at the time, this was a rare ability. In history, it's usually the freethinkers that are considered dangerous, because they're the ones who think past what they are told. Perhaps it was this material that opened his mind, and if that's the case, without knowing it, his mother gave him a tremendous gift. Before he was an adult and jaded by the turmoil in the country, he was opening his mind to possibilities that seemed unbelievable. His visions of a peaceful United States took him in the direction of politics as soon as he could establish himself among society. And when he was old enough to work, that's exactly what he did. He found odd jobs in town to get acquainted with his neighbors. His ability to tell stories made him very popular, and being so charismatic, it didn't take too long for him to become recognizable. According to Biography.com, he was a postmaster, a shopkeeper, and eventually the manager of a general store. Perhaps the most important job Lincoln took as a young adult was his volunteer work as captain during the Black Hawk War of 1832. Although he never fought any battles in this war, this was a time in his life where he made many of his important political connections. This was it for him, the break he needed to make a difference. He knew that in order to make change and get people to listen, he would need to speak on a larger platform. His law career eventually gave him that platform. He was elected the 16th President of the United States in 1860. It was finally his time. He saw great economic development in the future and thought that the slave trade didn't suit this purpose. He wanted Americans to find a way to work side by side rather than at odds in order to progress forward and one day become a great united nation. America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves. Abraham Lincoln from ThinkThis.com. In all the years he spent in office, his main concern was a peaceful nation. Lincoln believed that in order to move forward, grow economically, and become the country America had the possibility to be, we needed to find peace within ourselves, and therefore each other. The Civil War was a trying time, and for someone with such an important job, to remain focused on what seemed like a ridiculously unrealistic idea is an amazing feat in itself. Something can truly be learned from a man who saw what Abraham Lincoln saw, fought the battles he fought, and was constantly criticized for daring to believe that as one we are invincible. I walk slowly, but I never walk backward. If Abraham Lincoln was speaking of his life or his political career, he couldn't have put it better. From the time he was old enough to teach himself to read until his untimely death, he was walking forward, moving forward, working forward, and thinking forward. He was assassinated on April 14, 1865, by John Wilkes Booth, a political radical, at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. Booth and his followers believed that his ideas were crippling our nation, and he had to be stopped. These men took drastic actions to end his political career and his life because of how influential he had become as a leader. What they didn't know was that his death was not in vain. His words were already heard, his ideals were already spreading, and his purpose was already carried out. He spent most of his presidency as a peacemaker, and by the time of his death, the country was well on its way toward a peaceful future. It took some years to get where he wanted us to be, but no one can deny that this man's life was worth celebrating. I am not bound to win, but I am bound to be true. I am not bound to succeed, but I am bound to live by the light that I have. I must stand with anybody that stands right, and stand with him while he is right, and part with him when he goes wrong. Abraham Lincoln.